myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Second show of the night, and I'm delighted to welcome Kevin Gallacher to the show. Good evening, Kevin.
Good evening, Steve. It's been
Good
a
to have
while,
you.
Paul.
It has, mate. Dear me, how it's been donkey's years, but we don't look any older.
Oh yeah, well, speak for yourself. I've still got hair, son. Just hanging in there.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Well, good to have you on. You know the theme. You've seen a bit on Twitter as well. Lots of questions coming in, and what I'll try to do is get through the Twitter questions first, and then we'll dive onto the chat. Lots of questions coming in already, which is great. So a big welcome to you. Let's start off with one which isn't Newcastle related, and it's Keith Roll on Twitter who says, "Please, can you ask Kevin what it was like to score the winning goal against Barcelona, and also to reach the UEFA Cup final with Dundee United in 1987?"
Wow, that's not bad for him getting something from Newcastle as well. Oh, to be fair, it was brilliant for me because I was a young lad. I was 20 years of age. I was playing at a club in Scotland who weren't seen as one of the big hitters, or even though we were managing to beat the Celtics and the Rangers. We weren't seen like that. But around Europe, we were well known, and teams feared us. And, you know, when we drew Barcelona, you're thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. But we got them at a good time because Terry Venables was the manager. They had Mark Hughes and Gary Lineker, so they had a little British feel about them as well. But they were going through a little bad spell in Spain, so it was kind of a good time for us to get them and draw them in the quarterfinals. And you kind of thought, well, we got as far as the semi-finals of the Champions League a few years earlier against Roma and got beat and got knocked out. So this was a big chance, and to actually start in that game for me was unbelievable. And the atmosphere at home was even better. And I mean, I thought I scored, and even to this day, and I watched the videos, I thought I scored at the start of the second half. I didn't realise it was the start of the first half. And I mean, that's how quickly the game went through for a young guy, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience of it, and it was an unbelievable chance. You know, it was one of those opportunities. We tried to keep the play quick, and we worked on set plays, Steve, all the time at Dundee United, and we took a quick throw in. And Paul Sturrock is an unbelievable centre forward, and that guy, his touch it's like Velcro. You put the ball to his foot for any angle, any height, and it normally stuck to him. And this occasion, it came firing off his foot, and I just wonder if it was the tension of the game, and it fired back at me, and I just reacted. I didn't know what I was doing, to be perfectly honest. I just reacted to the ball coming back to me so quickly, and I hit it, and it was one of them. I thought, that's going in. And I just couldn't believe it. And I watched Zubi Zaretta, and he was backpedaling, and I thought, wow. And I was in the flight of the ball, and I couldn't believe it. I never even ran far to celebrate. The lads were all jumping on me, and they were shouting, what a fluke, what a fluke. And I thought, I meant it. I don't know. And to be fair, the more I've watched it and over all these years, and it's my most famous goal around the world, I must admit, because it was against Barcelona. But no, to just to do that and get us a 1-0 lead to go to Spain, because we got battered. I must admit, we got battered. Lineker missed a sitter. Mark Hughes missed an opportunity. You know, and you're thinking, oh my God, are we going to survive it? We did. And we went to Barcelona, and everybody had written us off. And we went over there and beat them 2-1. So, and I think Dundee United still have a claim to fame over Barcelona in European competition. Is the only British club to beat Barcelona home and away.
Wow.
So that's a good feat for a small club in Scotland.
Fantastic, mate. Yeah, great stuff. And, you know, as you're saying, I mean, Newcastle, of course, beat them 3-2 in that infamous game that Tino got the hat-trick. But, to beat them home and away, not many teams can say they've done that full stop.
I know. And it was great for us. And for me, you know, I was a young lad, and you're in the side, and I just couldn't believe it. You just get carried away, because some of the guys I was playing with had already played in the European semi-final, and had it not been, as we found out years later, for a referee given a brown paper bag from the Italians, realistically we would have actually got to the final against Liverpool. And you never know what might have happened there, but at the end of the day, it never happened. And you know, that's the last final of Europe that Dundee United got into, and it was a great team to be part of.
Mark Taylor says you've got a great shirt collection on your Twitter header. He's asking which one is your favourite shirt.
Oh my God, I've got loads. I mean, my cup final Dundee United shirts. Something about the tangerine and black. I like them. My Newcastle brown, Newcastle shirt. I love that one. Just because it's got Newcastle brown on it, and I just love that. My first Scotland shirt. It's just all my firsts really. Every single shirt, and they all mean something to me. The collection I have or had is unbelievable. And I just thought I didn't really start collecting shirts until really late on at Blackburn. So there wasn't kind of many shirt swapping, and Blackburn came in with a rule of if you get 4 shirts a season, and you're thinking, well, hold on a minute here, there's 20 clubs in the league. So you end up having to buy them all. So me being the tight Scotsman, there's no way I was buying shirts. I didn't swap them.
Brilliant. Great crack. Mark's second part of his question, he says, Newcastle and its fans have always been an intense place. Players like Nicky Butt, Jermaine Jenas described it like a goldfish bowl where there's no escape. He says, did you feel it was different to other clubs, and how did you cope?
It was different. The only way I can put Newcastle is it's black and white. It's true to their colours. When you win, you're loved. When you get beat, you're hated but loved. And that's the way the people up in Newcastle took it. I lived up there and I moved in at Heading on the Wall, and it was great. We socialised together as a team when we went out. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. You were a superstar. At Blackburn, a club where I've been and we win the league, and you've got a smaller amount of fans, probably, 50% less than what Newcastle was. For me, it was going to a massive club for me. I'd played Newcastle many times. I knew about the club. I thought, wow, it's all right. It's a big club. Once I was inside, I couldn't believe the size of it, Steve. It was massive. And that, to me, was, wow, find out about the club and find out about the people. I thought, well, me being me, I just have to work hard at it. I think they like people that work hard. I looked at the team that had the Spreas, Ferdinands, and Shearers. I played with Shearer, so I kind of get a gist of how Newcastle had played under Kevin Keegan, Dalglish, under Ruud Gullit, how it went sour. And then Bobby Robson came in, and that opportunity to me, I couldn't say no. The only thing was I forgot to look at the league table before I said yeah. And that might have changed a little bit because I'd just been relegated with Blackburn. And I wasn't for sure for leaving Blackburn, but the manager that came in just never got on and we never seen eye to eye. So it was time to leave. But for me, when Newcastle came in, you can't say no. For me, I could not say no to Newcastle. I was a 33 years old, and I'd just been to a World Cup. Come back, I was flying high, and you know what I mean. And it was just a shame I didn't get as many games as I'd hoped, and didn't score as many goals as I'd hoped.
Yeah, you can see on the timeline, I'm sure you've seen it, a lot of people appreciated the effort, and a lot of people say they wish they had somebody similar to you in the team now, because I think you realise as well, it's what Newcastle, it's the one thing Newcastle fans demand. It's just putting effort in, which really should just be a given by players. Yeah,
I mean, that's always been my philosophy. You can cover 1,000 sins. I'm from a football family, so I was getting hints and tips from people of telling you how to mask bad performances, and to mask a bad performance is to work hard for the team. Don't let them down. You might let them down with your technical ability on that day. Don't let them down with your work rate. So that philosophy I carried through all my career and the way that I played. And I think when Sir Bobby seen that up close, he kind of thought, he's going to run himself into the ground, and kept subbing me. And I just realised when I was doing a bit of homework history on myself with Newcastle that round about 70 to 79 minutes, it was Sir Bobby Robson's magic time of get Kevin Gallacher off. And I kind of find that a bit strange because I didn't realise I came off as many times.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Somebody just mentioned in the chat as well. They've got an image of you coming off against West Ham for Fumaker. Of all players, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? But sometimes it gets into the mindset even of managers like Bobby Robson.
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't think I came off for Fumaker, by the way. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fumaker came on for Rob Lee. We were 2-0 up against West Ham, and he came on for Rob Lee, and honestly, it was what we should have done is we should have got buckets and buckets and buckets of sand and just thrown it down for him so he could play his own football. But I think the turning point of that match was me and Big Fergie got subbed not long. It might have been a double substitution actually that they'd done, and next thing we know, that West Ham got 2 goals. It was a bit disappointing, to be fair, because we were battering them up to that point. But unfortunately, I think Rob got injured just after half time, and Fumaker came on, and I think that might have been his one and not many appearances.
Yeah, that's right. I think you're right. Billy Trey asks a question. He says, I was at your English debut at Forest for the first leg of the League Cup semi for Coventry, was it?
Coventry, yeah.
Did facing and being kicked by Stuart Pearce so many times make you think you should have stayed at Dundee United? Pearce should have been, he said he would have been sent off 5 times in today's game.
It was a massive eye-opener. I should have actually clicked on it, Steve, I must admit, in the dressing room at the team talk when John Sillett was going through players and going through the team and talking about the team, and we were going out the door to the start of the match, and he's like, all the best, all the best, all the best, and he just went to me, take care of me, man. And I never clicked. I went out and never realised that. I thought, he just said to me, take care, why? And I went out, and I remember it as plain as day. We got a throw in down the right hand side, and Brian Burrows took a throw in, and I checked my shoulder, and Stuart Pearce is 5 yards off me. He's let it bounce, and as the ball's bouncing, I've turned my head back. I've controlled it and laid the ball back to Brian Burrows, and he took me just above the waist. And I thought, oh my God, who is this guy? And I learned very quickly how to jump, how to run, how to do somersaults, how to avoid tackles, just because of that one game. But it was a baptism of fire, I must admit, to play against him. I think I handled it well, but I certainly know when Stuart Pearce appreciated how good a player I was when I scored a hat-trick against him in the League Cup after the 2 years of winning it, and then they came to the Highfield Road and I scored a hat-trick. And I think it was that day really that Stuart Pearce appreciated, like, I wasn't going to roll over because he had a nickname of Psycho, and it took a few games to get to that far. But you know, going back to the first game, it done me, and I was, to be fair, it slowed me up a little bit. But I remember Mickey Ginn had just rolled a pass to me. It was one that was a horror pass. And I looked at it, and I looked at Stuart Pearce, and he just came through it. And I ended up, looked like I was going to put my foot in the ball, and I stepped back, and Stuart Pearce just went straight under me with the ball, straight into the stand. And I just looked, and I thought, and he turned around with a big smile on his face. And I thought, if I'd have just stopped that ball, I was out of it. And I thought, this guy is a nutter. And then after the game, John Sillett patted me in the back. How's the back? It's sore. And he went, well done, me man, because Psycho was after you. And I went, who? He went, Psycho. He says, that's his nickname because he's mad. And I thought, that was it. Welcome to English football for me.
Definitely welcome to English football. That's no doubt about it. Stu Penman says he was just looking forward to this. He says you gave your all for our club, and that's all that anybody could ask for. Andre says, what did Kevin think of Shola Ameobi? He says, I'll always remember that faithful Saturday, 9th of September 2000. When Shola came for Kevin to make his debut versus Chelsea, we were also on top of the table before the game, and Vialli was sacked after it. So, what was your take on Shola? Because he was one who probably split fans' opinions. He was, he's known up here now as the Mackham destroyer. Because his goals always seem to be against Sunderland.
Well, that's the best way of saving him, isn't it? He saves his goals to Sunderland. But no, Shola was a young player coming through, and bags of talent, with Paul Robinson at that time as well, I think, at the time. And then we sold Big Duncan to Everton. So we were kind of getting thin. And then we got Cordoni came in, didn't he? And Shola was coming through. And the talent, to be fair, I thought he was a talented kid. I think and thought he could get better and should have been better for Newcastle. I know he's a Newcastle legend as he is anyway, but, I thought he could have gone up there because the kid could score goals. He was a tall guy, great ball control, and it's just one of those things that sometimes you're at a club and it's your home club and you need help. And I think that was at the time he was starting his career at Newcastle, when Newcastle was trying to rebuild and go places. And I think he could have, if he'd have been there a couple of years earlier under Spears and things like that, and came into that squad of boys, I think he would have been tuned up to a better player. But to go and play international football as he did as well, just showed that he hit the dizzy heights of it.
Spenny was asking you a question on Twitter. You've kindly said you would answer it tonight. Best team performance that you played in?
Man United. We beat them 3-0. I must admit, I think all through my career, I scored against Man United in goals and drawn against them, but I don't think I'd ever beaten them. That was at Coventry and also at Blackburn. And to come to Newcastle and beat them 3-0, and I don't mean beat them 3-0, I mean batter them 3-0. And be part of that game, Big Duncan battered Jaap Stam. Fair, I mean, we were just phenomenal that day, and to get that result, and the girls, my daughters, like at that time, like were kind of growing up in the back of the Spice Girls and David Beckham, and they were like, and just telling them all, I tackled David Beckham at Man United, played Man United, and we beat them and all that. And, did you know? All right. And they can't believe they actually played against guys like that. But that game for me, it was a great performance. But we had others. Spurs, we beat Spurs at Christmas. I think it was 5-0, 6-0, 6-1 or something like that. And I think that was a great performance, an unbelievable. And I think they had Ginola playing for him at Spurs. He may have scored, actually. But, I think that was another performance. But I think it was about 4 or 5 performances that we played, but for me, the one that always stuck out was beating Man United.
Yeah, no surprise there at all. Joe Walker says, Kevin, you played for some top managers. How good was Sir Bobby, and what was it that was so special about him?
Wow, what was good about it? The only thing it is, Sir Bobby was fantastic. Fantastic for me was, for me coming up and not actually, even though I had a house in Newcastle, I was commuting quite a bit as well. And he was fantastic for me. He looked after me really well that way. I wish I'd actually met him 10 years earlier. His enthusiasm at that time was fantastic. His knowledge was magnificent, and picking his brains and the help that he would give you and put an arm around you, and also get you mixed up with the likes of Kieron Dyer. I don't know how he could do that, but he did. So little things like that just mean a lot, and that's what he did. And the only downside was he never done his homework when my second year of my contract, because I was hoping to get a third year at Newcastle. But he thought I was moving back to the Northwest. He thought I had a club, and that was the only downside of it. But it didn't sour anything. He spoke to me about it, and he was quite surprised when I said to him, I said, well, I don't have a club. I said, so basically I'm getting released. And he just went, oh, if I'd have known that. And that was it, really. So that was all the conversation we had at the end. But I wish I'd worked under it. He brought a lot of knowledge. Basically, him, Mick Wadsworth at the time, basically the ones that kind of encouraged me to get into coaching and understand the game a little bit better as well. And I started all sort of coaching stuff back then under day 2 as well. So it was great fun, great to learn, and it was a learning experience. And even though he put me on the bench in some of the games and things like that, he thought very, very highly of me for someone of my age to run about as much as I did, and for the enthusiasm that I showed in the training pitches. It helped get a lot of the deadbeats out, shall we say.
Tom Dixon says, what was your biggest disappointment in a Newcastle shirt?
I think it was the day before we played Chelsea in the semi-final of the Cup. First, I'd got in the FA Cup. I had dreams about playing in an FA Cup final. And Chelsea were the team that were going to be in the middle. And we went down to London and we were practising penalty kicks. So I'm going to be one of the penalty takers should it go that far. And here's me, I put Shea Given the wrong way, and unfortunately I pulled my thigh muscle at the same time. And I thought, how do I tell the manager this, that I've actually pulled my thigh? So I kind of discreetly limped away and pulled him aside and says, Gaffer, I says, I can't do it tomorrow now. I says, I've pulled my thigh. And he just put his hands in his head, like, and a lot of the players, I think, were disappointed as well, like, because I think that was an opportunity that I didn't want to pass out on, because I believed that had I been fit, we could have helped the team beat Chelsea that day.
Yeah, I would agree. Fantastic day, big opportunity, but just wasn't to be. The jinx or the curse, as people call it, struck again. Joe Walker says, what was your favourite place in Newcastle for a pint?
Oh, big Stevie's joint. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. It's just up the
Black Bull and Barrack Road.
That's the one. That's the one. Oh, something, a good Christmas do in there one year, if I remember rightly. Just remember it.
Fancy dress?
No, we didn't do fancy dress that year, which was quite strange, as I imagine, because the lads used to do the fancy dress thing. But no, we didn't do fancy dress. But put it this way, we had good fun, and I can't remember how I got home, but I got home and it was a great night, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Tom Dixon again coming in with, if you were Newcastle manager, which player would you sign if money was no object?
Oh, I might try and buy 3 of them. I'd try and get Messi in there. Then I would go Ronaldo for my second place, and then I would take Ibrahimovic, and I'd just go all out attack. Just feed day 3 and you'll score goals and you'll beat them. And it's a Kevin Keegan philosophy. We'll beat them 4-3, it doesn't matter. That's the way I would go. But, I'm a Messi fan. A small player, talented guy. He's my number one man in the world. And, even at his ripe old age, you could still build a team around him. We did it at Blackburn with Alan. We built a team around Alan Shearer and it won us the league, and Barcelona built a team around Messi and they've been doing it for many years.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. Lucas says, what's your thoughts on the summer transfer window? We obviously have a lot of players running out of contract. Looks like we don't have much money to spend either because our squad is poor as it is. I mean, I suppose, Kevin, it depends on what division we're in and who owns the club, doesn't it?
There's a lot of things in there with that one, isn't it? Yeah, it's true. It depends on the owners. It depends if we're going to release finance, if the owners stay, where you are in the league, if you're in the Premier League. It's a bigger attraction. If you go to the Championship, basically the players that are out of contract will be out of contract. I don't think they'll be signing. It's as simple as that. And then whoever comes in there, if the manager's still there, if Steve Bruce has still got that job, then how does he try and keep the players? But, it's a hard league. Teams can take points. I watch Burnley and people talk about Burnley and they're taking points off teams at the top of the table as well. So you can do it on your day, and it's just believing that you can do it on your day and having that faith because, I watched Fulham, who looked like they've been struggling, and they just won the other night as well to catch up and put pressure on Newcastle. But, fingers crossed, they've got enough fighting spirit in there, and it's they can battle their way out of it. But the transfer window in the summer, it depends on what's going to happen at the football club.
Joe Walker wants to know, how good was Alan Shearer?
He was all right, wasn't he? He was not too bad. He was okay. To be fair, I joined Blackburn when Alan got an injury to help Blackburn boost up the league and get back up the league in the first season in the Premier League and sort of take the place of Alan until he was ready, and we didn't know how long he would be. And you know what I mean? But to actually go and when he got himself fit and train with him and see what he was like. And at that time at Blackburn, he believed, he believed he was a number 10. The boys were saying, no, Alan, you are a centre forward. You are the best centre forward. No, I'm a number 10. I like to play with a big guy. He says, you could play with a big guy, a little guy. It doesn't matter. You are like the mainstay, number 9 guy that I would class yourself as. So it doesn't matter if it was Mike Newell or Chris Sutton or whoever it was going to be, or Les Ferdinand. You would move around. Alan would always be that main striker. And for me, the way he scored goals, the way he struck the ball, I tried it many times in training to copy him. I couldn't do it. How he controlled it, the power in his legs, the technique that he had was brilliant. And, I know everybody's a different type of striker, different finishers. And, and Alan was one of them. And to be able to play alongside him for, 3 or 4 seasons at Blackburn and a couple of seasons at Newcastle, for me, it was a dream come true for me, because for me, the best goal scorer I've ever played with. And I've played with Ali McCoys, Maurice Johnsons, I've played with all these guys and the Chris Suttons of the world. But for scoring goals, for me, Alan is one of the best that I've played with.
Yeah, I would say he's probably the best forward I've ever had a chance to see. My favourite player, of course, was Peter Beardsley. Definitely my favourite Newcastle player of all time. Jeff just says, top player, Kevin, always give 100%. Thanks for that. I just wish some of our present players would take a leaf out of your book. Many thanks again. Joe Walker says, what advice would you give to Joe Linton? I mean, obviously, price tag's not his fault, but lack of effort last season meant that his critics had a field day, me included. But this season there's been signs of life. That it's still not £40 million player. But what advice would you give to somebody who struggles like that?
Well, there's a saying in it: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And Joe Linton's the talent, but if he doesn't work hard, it's never going to work. And if the penny drops with him and he works harder, then his talent will shine through. And that, for me, I've seen glimpses of him. And, I think he's got the talent, but I just think sometimes I've seen a player do that. Kevin Davis came to Blackburn for £7 million price tag. And it does weigh people down, even though it's not there and it's not their problem. It sometimes subconsciously weighs you down in your head, and you can go on somewhere else and have a great career as Kevin Davis did. Joe Linton, for me, is different. He's a talented player. He needs to do the work side of it. And when he does the work side of it, I think both of them will come together. And there's a player there. But it's time. And you can't wait till tomorrow. It has to be yesterday. And it's just about working hard for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Good luck to him on that, though. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for him. Kieron Dyer, proper player or overrated?
Proper player. Good player. Talent, unbelievable. Unfortunately, when he was at Newcastle, when I was there, he had a lot of shin splint problems. Couldn't see the best of him. But when Kieron played, sometimes he was unstoppable. He was quick, he was sharp, eye for goal. But he could be a pain in the backside as well at times. And sometimes you just needed to kick him up the backside. But Kieron went the other way. He'd go in a huff sometimes, and you had to try and get him out of it. So you spent half the time trying to get him out of a huff, and then it spoiled sort of the game sort of thing. But what a player he was, a talented kid. But in my time there, he had a lot of shin splint problems, and he struggled with the pain of them.
Yeah, I mean, there was no question there was a player in there. As you say, it's just unfortunately, some of these players, especially players who are quick, can get a lot of injuries. And he did like a night out, Kieron, as well, mind. That's got to be said. Alex Brett says, I met you, Kevin, at Croydon Park Hotel when we were at Wimbledon away. You were stood next to Big Al, who had asked for a ticket, and you convinced him to give me 2. Great day, apart from losing 2-0.
I bet you wish you never got him the tickets now.
Here's a good one. Tim Kern says, in your Blackburn days, people accused Jack Walker bought the title. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah, it's often been levelled at Blackburn. I mean, the bought their way to the title. What's your views?
Who's not bought the title? Man United bought the title. Let me look at Leicester. You know what I mean? They've bought a title. The money they spent on players to buy it. Man City, they've bought a title. Everybody, I think the problem people had, they were jealous at that time of a working man who sold his business, made a fortune, put it into his football club. It's not just about that. It's about the business side of it. And the business side of it that he did is he bought players. Okay, yes, he spent 3.3 million on a Shearer, 5 million on a Sutton. He spent 2.5 million on a Batty. Yes, people will always bring that up, but we still didn't spend as much as what Man United did to win leagues. But what Kenny did was he bought the players that he thought would fit a jigsaw and put that jigsaw together to win the league. And he had a 5-year span and a 5-year idea. And that's what Jack had. We done it in 3, which was unbelievable. And that's why I think people were jealous of a small town club beating all the city big boys. And rightly so, because when the first season in the Premier League, they finished 4th, 2nd, and then 1st. So that showed that Blackburn meant business. But then it all went pear-shaped after that, as everybody knows about. And I mean, a few years later, we were back down to the Championship again. But, it was great while it was happening at the football club. Yes, people said it could have been bought. But for me, everybody's buying the league. Man City, I mean, that's the biggest one. The millions of pounds they're spending.
Yeah, it's crazy, the money these days. Captain Keith Hart says, thanks for everything you did, Kevin. Who was the best player at Newcastle that you played with?
Oh, there was quality talent there. People don't realise it. Gary Speed was unbelievable. I played against Gary on a few occasions and didn't realise how good he was until I actually played with him and trained with him and seen the professionalism of him. You had Rob Lee. You look at Shearer. You just rhymed. These are quality players. You had a guy called Silvio Maric.
Remember
him? And Steve, don't get me wrong, when I signed for Newcastle, my friend back in Glasgow watched Celtic versus Croatia Zagreb, I think it was, and Silvio played for him at the time and absolutely annihilated Celtic. And he phoned me up when he knew that I was signing, and Silvio was a player, and he phoned me up and says, Kevin, can you get me his autograph? And 2 weeks later, I realised that Silvio wasn't trying for Newcastle, and I phoned my mate back up and I says, your autograph's in the bin because he's wasting the time here at Newcastle. He's a talented player, but he just didn't want to do it. And it was that old work ethic. He didn't want to work hard at it, but he was a talented player. But Newcastle had a lot of talent in there. And the thing was, it was just putting that together. And unfortunately, I think Ruud Gullit at the time had mangled it. Got wires confused, really. And Sir Bobby had to go in there and try and untie it, really, and do things. And for me, I was fortunate because I was his first signing. But my job was to go in and try and see what was happening. And I knew what was happening right away. I went into the dining room and we all ate together. And the first thing that I seen was there was a table of the senior English British pros. There was a small table of the younger English pros. And then there was a table of the South Americans, a table of the Europeans, and everything was split up. There was nothing, there was no togetherness, there was nothing like that. And that was a side of it that had to change. And fortunately, it happened. We had a guy called Nobby Solano, as everybody knows, an absolute legend at Newcastle. And Nobby just wanted to be British. He wanted to be actually a Geordie. He wanted to be like that. And it was brilliant. And Nobby just says he was part of it and managed to start to split the tables up and mingle everybody about to try and get at least a team together that would play together. And that, to me, happened. And it weaned out the ones that didn't really want to play for Newcastle at that time. And Sir Bobby and that got them all out. And everybody knows who they were. And then all of a sudden we see that we start to get a team together again.
Joe Walker says, what advice would you give to Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce if they called you tomorrow? He says, apart from packing their bags. Look, what advice would you give to Brucey, in the position that he finds himself in? Because there's a lot of people, they made a big thing of this. I'm sure you saw it on the media, but Newcastle, on social media at least anyway, a lot of Newcastle fans saw this, Steve Bruce laughing and joking. Now, look, we know he knows everybody at Man United. He's a Man United legend, really. He's close to the people at the club. Any photo can be taken out of context. But coming off after another defeat, Newcastle, heading towards relegation, it upset the supporters. And, they just don't want to see him laughing and joking. They want to see results. And, what advice would you give him in the current situation?
Just keep working hard. Keep the guys in the training pitch working hard. Keep your philosophy going. Believe in your philosophy. That's what you got to do, because as soon as you start changing your mind, things can go even worse pear-shaped. And going back to the photograph as well, Steve, people can. I remember saying it, watching a game, and you kind of think, oh, we're just having a joke. But that's what you do after a game. Normally the managers go, unlucky, well done, and yeah, all right, I'll see you for a glass of wine back in the office if we get a chance. And nowadays, you can't do that. You can't actually mix. So, you just have a chat going down that line, that touch line, and unfortunately somebody in the camera catches that and it gets misconstrued, and I can see why the fans were unhappy with it, because they've just been beaten and you're laughing and joking with the opposition manager. But as we all say, that game's over now. He's been beaten. He's got to now correct it and get it for the next match, and that's what he's thinking about now. So he's there thinking, well, we guys were done well second half. We were, because I thought Newcastle were better in the first half.
Yeah.
And lucky. The second half, Man United just stepped up a little gear and got a bit of luck. So that side of it, for me, just don't change his philosophy. Keep working hard and keep your head down, and hopefully things might change for him.
Okay, Alex Brett says, who was your favourite strike partner?
See, the question is, they're all difficult to answer. You know, it's really weird. Like, obviously, I love playing with Alan. There's no doubt about it, because I knew that if I'd go wide and cross the ball in the box from a run for a striker's point of view, I knew that Alan would be there. So to play alongside somebody like that was brilliant. But I had my two best goal scoring seasons. One with a striker called Mixu Patalainen, and another with Chris Sutton. And that's really strange how I've scored all my goals, my most goals ever in a season with those guys and not with Alan. But unfortunately, I think the season that I think Alan and I would hit it off was the season that I broke my leg, because we just started to get together and really we were hitting it off. And I think that was the time that unfortunately I broke my leg and we went out at the end of the season, I think, and we went and bought Chris Sutton. And as I say, the GAS obviously must have stunk, because they brought in the SAS to do the job.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff. Great listen, lads, says Looney Tune Daz. Phil Shuttleworth says, Stephen Gerrard's doing a great job at Rangers this season. Would he be a good shout for our new manager if the takeover goes through, or do you think he'll end up going to somewhere like Liverpool and replacing Klopp eventually?
Well, it'll be interesting, you know, to go to Rangers and do what he's done. He's caught Celtic on the hop. I think Celtic took it for granted there was going to be 10 in a row. But they're doing a good job up there. Good philosophy. At the moment, for him to go to Liverpool, I can't see that at the moment. But when do you give him an opportunity? That's the question. You look at Frank Lampard, he went to Derby. They took a lot of loan players at Derby in the Championship, and they've done really, really well. And Derby have struggled since he left there and took over a Chelsea job. And look at the job he was doing at Chelsea. I thought he was doing all right, but it was only all right. And Chelsea don't demand all right; they demand better. And now he's out of a job. So for me, I think Steven Gerrard at the minute, if he could take Rangers on a run and keep the results away from Celtic, that opportunity will arise. Whether it becomes a big club in the Premier League like in Newcastle, or whether it becomes a big club in the future like going to Liverpool again, where he's an absolute legend, I'm sure he'll get an opportunity in the Premier League if he can keep winning the leagues with Rangers.
Alan Coleman on Twitter says, did Kevin Keegan or Kenny Dalglish ever make an approach for Kevin when they were Newcastle manager, and would he have left Blackburn at that point for Newcastle?
No, I think no, not Kevin Keegan, certainly no. I don't recall any approach for Newcastle back then with Kevin. Kenny at that time, I think I think I'd retired actually when Kenny took the managerial at Newcastle. It's just a shame that the age I was actually at.
Yeah, David Crone says, Coisty and Shearer are brilliant crack. Who was the funniest player?
Oh, there's loads. Jason Wilcox in the Blackburn dressing room. You would just hear your own voice travelling across the dressing room. You're thinking, who's that? It sounds like me. And it was Jason Wilcox. He mimicked everybody. He had Ray Harford down to the ground, Kenny down to the ground. He was that type of comedian. For me, that he was probably the best one that I've come across for a long time.
Yeah, just an update on tonight's game. Leeds 3, Southampton 0 now in the Premier League. Funny team, Leeds, hit or miss, aren't they? One week they're getting beat 3-0, the next week they're winning 3-0, but entertaining nonetheless. Dunnell says, question for Kevin, who was the toughest centre-back you played against?
Tony Adams. I think probably for me. Tony Adams, there was lots of centre-halves that weren't as good as Tony Adams, and they were quite difficult, like people like Keith Currell when he was at Man City. Just because he was quick, he wasn't the best defender, but he always seemed to get back and last-ditch tackles and little things like that. But for me, Tony Adams, Stuart Pearce was another one. when I first came to England. But once I knew what it was all about, I just had to be able to read the game a little bit quicker, which I did, and get it better. But Tony Adams, for me, for 5 minutes, chased you everywhere. He just chased you everywhere, went down your Achilles, not just once, but 3 or 4 times, and he would pick you up and apologise. And you're like, all right, no problem, big man. The next minute he's doing it again. And he's, oh, sorry, wee man, I didn't mean that again. And he walk away and you're thinking, who's the mug here? I'm accepting this. And I just thought, no, I'm not having it. So when I used to play against Arsenal after I got to know him, I used to try and retaliate first and try and kick him first, because I knew he would always try and kick me. So my philosophy in England was basically try and retaliate first against all the centre-halves.
Big shout out to our sponsor, Spider VPN, who sponsored the StreamYard application this month, and qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. And a big shout out to John from Jab Signature, who does all of our flyers. First time visitor to the channel, subscribe, hit that little button in the bottom right hand corner, give the video a like and give it a share. Still got 20 minutes if you want to get your questions in. Ross Alexander says, who was the worst trainer that you've ever played alongside at Newcastle? And thanks for giving your all in black and white.
Worst trainer? I think I've got to point that at Silvio Maric.
Yeah.
Because the talent that he had, he just was not bothered. That was in training. Just wasn't bothered at all. And, you know, I remember when Sir Bobby sold him, it was like, wow, to be able to get rid of that talent, because he was. And you kind of, I was scratching my head, because I had a talent, but I mean, his talent I thought was a far better than mine, but for me, I ended up a far better player than him, because of I worked to get to what I wanted to do. Silver wouldn't work at it, and it's a lifelong saying of the talent. If it doesn't work hard, it's not going to get anywhere. And unfortunately for Silvio, I think he went downhill after that. Newcastle, his career just panned out.
Yeah, it did. He got a bad injury. Was he? He got a bad injury at the very start of his career. He never really recovered, did he? But some foreign players struggle as well when they come into the game.
Oh, they do. You know, and another one as well. And I thought he was a very good, very, very good player. Big Marcelino and Marcelino. But I broke my arm at Blackburn, and I played the next week with a cast on, and he broke his finger and refused to play. I kind of found that very, very strange. But that just shows the mentality and the way that Europeans' mentality towards the game is compared to the difference of what we are as British players. And, I didn't want to be dropped out of the team, because I knew it was hard to get back in. So I played with casts on. He didn't want to play with a broken finger. And you think, well, you don't play with your fingers and you don't take throw-ins. But the surgeon said if I fall over and I hurt it, I could lose my finger.
Yeah, it's interesting that, because I brought this up with Mick Lowes. We've got Mick on the show again at the weekend. Mick, of course, for a long time covered Newcastle United's fortunes with the radio. And I did mention Marcelino in a derogatory way, it has to be said. And I said, well, he got a broken finger and wouldn't play. Mick actually said that the injury he had was quite substantial. He says it was a bad injury, but I'm like you. I still find it, I find it hard how he couldn't have played with a cast on, But I think that shows the mentality. I think you're right, Kevin. You're a Scottish lad, and sometimes these players from abroad maybe aren't as tough as the lads born in Scotland.
Yeah, I think it's the weather you brought up in.
I think that's what it is. David Crone says, can you ask Kevin, Andy Gray, Joe Jordan or Big Duncan Ferguson?
3 different styles of players. I only watched Andy Gray and Joe Jordan growing up and how they played, really. And for me, playing alongside Big Duncan, I seen Big Duncan go from a gangling 16-year-old left winger to a phenomenal centre forward who never lost a header, who would punch your lights out, should I say, if you got on the wrong side of him. But, Big Dunk was a great talent, but because he was big and good in the air, teams would tend to actually just lump it in the air to Duncan and didn't give him credit for the way that he played on the ground. And Duncan hated it, but it was a tag that went along with him. And I just think the 3 guys pointed out there, there's 3 different talents, 3 different types of centre forward. Joe Jordan obviously got the most Scotland caps, was phenomenal centre forward for the way he played for Scotland. I think Big Dunk should have got more. But unfortunately, I think Big Dunk's attitude, that side of it, didn't work out in his favour, because I think he would have got more international caps, and I'd have probably played alongside him.
Yeah, exactly. Lee Taylor says, evening lads. Kevin, what was the reaction like in the Scotland dressing room after Gaza scored for England in Euro 96?
I was waiting for that. I thought someone might throw something in about Gaza. Oh, we were sick. No doubt about it. Absolutely sick. And I think what made it worse was his celebration, because it was all over the media with the, what was it, the dentist chair and things like that. And Gaza goes and does that against his biggest rivals, and you think, God, and it wasn't that. We are setting off half Colin Hendry. You're trying to pick Colin up as well. And it's never going to happen. It has to happen against, for me, one of England's best midfielders with Gaza. If it's ever going to happen with you, somebody's going to take the mickey. It's not a bad player to get the mickey taken from you, but to do talent like that, that's what Gaza was all about. You know, I've played against them many times, Scotland and England, and in the leagues with Spurs and Newcastle and things. And he could do that to anybody, and it's one moment of genius, and that was what a moment of genius. And you just think, wow. And no disrespect to it, but the celebration just killed us, because all we get told was, don't behave like England. Don't behave like England. And it still rattles on in my head to this day. We should have behaved like England, because we might have beat them.
Yeah. I remember that was a hell of a goal and a hell of a celebration, and constantly played time and time again. Tim C says, what was your funniest story in your career?
Funniest story in the career? Well, I've got loads of stories. The one that really got me was we brought in Daniel Cardone at Newcastle. I'll stick to a Newcastle theme anyway. And at Newcastle, and Daniel Cardone and we were in the changing rooms at Durham, at the cricket ground at the time where we used to train. And we were in, and you put your kit down in the middle, and you'd have your shirts, your socks, your underpants and everything. It was all set out in different sections. And Daniel Cardone wouldn't get changed. He'd still be in his training kit. And then you get in the next day and half the kit's missing. And you think, where's the kit gone? And where is it? Nobody get the kit in that. Put your other kit on and thinking, where's all the kit going? And didn't realise that Daniel was actually taking the kit and sending it back, all the way back to homeland. And I thought, I can't believe this. We've got no kit to train in. And Daniel was filling his bag, and it wasn't until we caught him. And we said, Daniel, no, we have to wear it. He went, oh, no, it's okay, I'll take it back. And just thought, he couldn't believe it. And, you know, he dressed like a gypsy, he acted like a gypsy. And to this day, I still say he must have lived the life of a gypsy back home.
Crazy story. Somebody did ask as well, get back to that one. Yeah, Fungo Freddy says, did you ever go out on the drink with Cardone or Acuna? And if so, what were they like when they went out on the drink?
No, I never really went out with... we generally went out together, and we went out with your wives and things like that. And there's a big invitation. And Warren Barton, for me, Warren was the social convener, shall we say. And he got everything organised, and he'd always come up on the Friday and say, right, we've got a Chinese book for tomorrow. Anybody comes, let me know in the morning at the meeting. And then we'd get numbers, and then we'd all go out. So everybody was invited. Some of the European South Americans would come along. Clarence Acuna would come along, like the wee dram now and again. Cardone. But realistically, the mainstay ones was generally Wee Nobby was the best for me. Wee Nobby was at every social convene we went out at. He was there. And the funniest one was when we went out to the Japanese restaurant that was just down from the stadium. It was absolutely fantastic. My first time of being there, and it was a great night. And with a right good few drinks, there was about 10 or 12 of us there. And we were going to go to the casino. And Wee Nobby says, I'm going to drive. And the wives all refused. And they jumped in a taxi and left the lads. They thought, we can't leave Nobby. He's jumped in the car to drive. And he says, I do this in Peru. In Peru, if the police stop me, it's okay. Because I just go into my boot, pull out a ball, sign the ball and give it to them. I went, Nobby, this is England. They'll put you in the boot and take you to jail. And he was having none of it. And to be fair, it was the scariest moment I've ever done, sitting in the back of a car with Nobby Solano, having a drink and I'm trying to drive in Newcastle. And we were only going about, I don't know, 500 metres or something like that. And I thought, never again. And that was it. So we said to him, never again. You leave the car. And you did put him in a taxi. And that was it. Everybody jumped in taxis on the way home. But thought, never again are we doing that on a night out. But it was brilliant. It was a great night out. And I must admit, because I think the headache lasted till Monday afternoon after playing.
Fantastic. Joe Walker says, what do you make of modern football, Kevin? VAR, the substitutions, etc. What do you make of it these days?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Where do you start? I think modern day football now, I'd love it because centre-halves can't touch you. I would find it a lot easier. I'd probably score more goals, play more games, and I wouldn't be able to go up to my tricks of standing on the toes of the centre-halves or anything like that. I'd probably get more yellow cards. As for VAR, yes, we're still talking about the game as much as we have done in the past, but I'm not a massive fan, I must admit. You're going and you're waiting and you're standing around on the pitch while the referee goes away, double checks in the hand and changing the handball rule. And it's going back, and to me, it's spoiling a lot of things as well. And those little striking decisions where you time a run, but your fingertip or your nail is offside. I can't fathom that anymore. I just think the game's now starting to get run with guys with shirt and ties on that haven't played the game, and they're just making a rule up. And for me, it's spoiling it a little bit, and it's making the game softer. I don't think it'll be too long before it's you're not allowed to touch the opposition type game.
Yeah, I'd agree. Simon Horn says, I think you made your debut at Dundee against... Are you going to attempt this? Can you say that name?
Newcastle Zamax.
There we go,
Newcastle Zamax. Yeah, no. Yeah, no. It's I'm just going to say to Simon, it's Dundee United. Don't get it mixed up. It's Dundee United. Yeah, no. I was on the bench for the game. It was my debut. And I'm on the bench, and I got taken to Switzerland, the second leg, and I was all excited. And in the dugout, it was a concrete dugout about that thick. And I'm in the dugout, and I think Ian Redford scored to take it to extra time. And I've jumped up, and I've smacked my head in the dugout, and I couldn't believe it. And I had these lines across my eyes, and I was looking down, and I couldn't see my feet. I could only see forward, and I found it really, really weird. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get on anyway because I'm last minute with an injury. It's just filling up the squad. Yeah, I'm on the bench. And we got into extra time. And I think we went into second half extra time, and the great German Uli Stielik is playing sweeper. And the manager just says, go on, enjoy it. Go and get us a goal if you can, and play on the old guy at the back. And I was like, wow. I thought, I don't want to go on. I couldn't see my feet. What happens if I get the ball? Could I see it? I don't know. So I got warmed up. I went on and I ran everywhere away from the ball. And that was my debut against Newcastle Zamax. I just did not want that ball because I couldn't see. I didn't know at the time, but obviously I was concussed. I concussed myself when I smacked my head on the dugout. And it was just one of those things. I went on and played in the game. I thoroughly enjoyed I don't know if it was 10 minutes I think I got in that game. But the biggest one was yet to come, and that was just the baptism of fire, because getting into that was really exciting for me. But we got back, and on the Friday the manager called me into the office, and I thought it was going to be about the game, about maybe my preparation for the Newcastle Zamax one, and it wasn't. He was actually preparing me for my debut in the league against Glasgow Rangers at Ibrox against 45,000 Rangers fans, and that was it. And it was just to see if I could handle the pressure. And I went in and I sold it to him. I says, yeah, I believe it. It's not going to worry me. I enjoyed playing against Newcastle Zamax. I think playing against Rangers, it's a team I don't support. I support the green side. So I think it could be a good opportunity for me. So he said, right, leave it with me, but you'll be in the squad. And I turned up, and at that time in Ibrox, the stand was open and you could see where you'd done the warm-up. You weren't allowed to warm up on the grass. and I was getting absolute dogs abuse. The sectarianism that I was getting called was all sorts. And I thought, oh my God, this is weird. And I went out, we beat Rangers, and I never looked back. I stayed in the first team from then on, and my career just escalated to where I got to.
Fantastic. Last 5 minutes, Alex Brett says, who was the hardest player at Newcastle?
Toughest? Shearer.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, Alan's a gentle giant, but don't get in the wrong side of him. He's a strong lad, and he's an utter. But Big Duncan, to be fair, before he left, that would have been interesting to me, because Big Dunk, I shared the room with Duncan when I went to Newcastle, and he's a great laugh, a nice big fella. But it's one of them. I always stayed on his good side, and that was it. But I would like to go on the wrong side of him. But for me, Shearer was one of the hardest that I've come up against. That I would say definite.
Yeah. Okay. Keith says, Kevin, you were a solid player for Newcastle. What was your favourite moment of your international career with Scotland?
Playing against Brazil, the opening game of the World Cup. Something I dreamt about as a kid, playing in mum and dad's back garden, to be honest. But it was a final, really. Scotland beat England in the semi-final in World Cup, got to the World Cup final and play against Brazil. And that was me. I was playing there, and I would score the goal, and of course Scotland would win the World Cup in the back garden as a 8, 9, 10-year-old kid. When it came to the December before the draw in the World Cup, when we qualified for '98 World Cup, and I sat in front of the telly and the draw came up. We've got Brazil, Morocco, Norway, and the opening game of the World Cup, Scotland versus Brazil. Wow, I thought, second biggest game in the world, if not the biggest game in the world to be watched. Not only are you going to be watched by the people inside the stadium, it's going to be billions of people around the world watching it, and you're actually playing against the world champions. And I thought, well, to do that, my dream could come true. This is my dream as a child coming true. Difference was, it wasn't in the World Cup final. It had an S on it. It was a World Cup final. So maybe that's a part of the dream that I missed out.
Still an amazing achievement when you look back on it, mate. Absolutely fantastic. Tom Dixon says, Kevin, do you miss playing football? And what was your favourite memory? Did you play in any local derbies?
Yeah, I played in Dundee United derbies. 2 teams in the one city. You had to walk on the right side of the street after that one, or you get dogs abuse or chased even. And they didn't think that they couldn't catch me first and foremost, but they would chase you. It wasn't nice in Dundee at that time, but I lived with family who were split, Dundee and Dundee United fans, and it was really weird because Dundee United had always had the upper hand, and I shared a room with my cousin Kevin, who was a Dundee United fan, and in the other room, my cousin Brian and my cousin Mark were Dundee fans, and the rivalry we would have and the banter we would have between us was brilliant. But then after the game, we'd go back, and yes, we did have computer games back then, and I would get invited into the room to play the computer games with him, whereas the other Kevin, my cousin, no, he got bombed out because he was a United fan. I was a player, so worked that one out. But that to me was one of the best derbies to play, and obviously Sunderland, I sat on the bench against Sunderland, and I'd heard about it, and I came on and I played against Sunderland. You thought, wow, the atmosphere for those games were just phenomenal, and they lasted a week long as well. They were very different because, as I always said about Newcastle, it's black and white, and that's the way it was. It was black and white, and sure lived up that way, and that was a good thing about it. And I think we drew 1 each. I think it was a score, if I'm not mistaken. But no, the Blackburn, I never played in a derby game for Blackburn because Burnley weren't good enough at that time to be in the same league as us. And probably the biggest derby of all was England, Scotland versus England. Another derby, it's just phenomenal. And I mean, my second international game was against England at Wembley. And I mean, I was on the bench for that game and came on, got about 15, 20 minutes, and Peter Shilton had an unbelievable save down low to his left-hand post to make sure that England beat us 1-0. But that could have maybe rose me to instant stardom with Scotland, but Peter Shilton spoiled that day for me.
Great stories, mate. That hour has flown over. Thanks to everybody in the chat and on Twitter for some fantastic questions. Jules has put on about Tiger Woods. Yeah, it's tragedy that he's okay, as in he's still alive, but he's had a bad car crash. And when you look at the photographs that are circulating on social media at the minute, it doesn't look good at all. So thoughts obviously with him, one of the greatest golfers that's ever lived, Tiger Woods, and he's been through the mill the last few years. Kevin, quick one from you. Message for the fans who are watching, mate. It'd be great to get you back on, hopefully in the summer as well. But just have you got a message for the fans watching tonight?
Yeah, I would just say sit tight, keep supporting the club, because don't forget, you guys will outlast the football club. Stay behind the lads. Simple.
Great stuff, mate. You've been a great servant of the club. Great to have you on, mate, and thanks for your time.
No, it's been a pleasure, Steve, and all the best, and here's to the boys picking up that table and making it a little bit easier for all the fans.
Good stuff, mate. Stay safe. Hopefully speak to you again in the summer. Take care, Kevin.
Andrew, take care.
Bye-bye. I'm back at 9 o'clock with a pre-recorded show, something a little bit different. I know a lot of you know that I like me true crime. I did do a book with Charles Salvador, a poetry book, so hear me and Charles talk a little bit about the book at 9 o'clock. Gives you an hour's break, but come back at 9 o'clock. But I am also back tomorrow night with a retro show. It is Wednesday night. We are looking back at games against Tottenham Hotspur. So join me, Steve Wilkinson, Steve Hasty, Neil Mitchell and Stu Penman tomorrow night talking about games against Tottenham Hotspur. And don't forget the lads from Loaded Football will be back at 9 o'clock tomorrow night. They will be taking you through all of their usual fun and games tomorrow night. I did mention a little bit earlier as well, I've got Mick Lowe's back on Sunday. That'll be 1 until 2. And don't forget as well, Thursday night, Supermac and Gibbo. And Friday night we will be back with the 3 Amigos. So action-packed week as always. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's extra special show with Kevin Gallacher. Big shout out to him again. And I will see you all tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Take care, good night, stay safe.